Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I probably should welcome myself back because I've had about 3 weeks off, which was quite unplanned. But I dare say a little detox and respite from the world and everything else that's going on can only be good. But however, I am back, and with me is best friend of the channel who needs no introduction, but of course I will. It is one and only Xavier Ayral. Mon ami, it's great to have you back. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. How are you, mon ami?
Good and very good. Like I say, I had no plans to be off the platform, but it turned out to be a quick 3 weeks, and I'm just trying to get back into the zone again over the next few days, especially as I have the time. So I haven't been watching a lot of TV. I'm not watching a lot of anything, to be honest with you, in terms of what's going on in the world, although I'm picking little bits up here and there. So I'm hoping you're thinking the same as me, that more and more clarity surrounds the times that we're living in and what heaven has forewarned us about. So maybe we can create a picture and keep ourselves updated, keep everyone updated as well. In the case of hope, not fear, as we always have to keep saying, because a lot of the stuff that's covered in messages and prophecies do seem to come with that little bit of a scary narrative for some. I don't feel that anyway at all, and I don't know if that's because I'm desensitized to it all, or hopefully it's by God's grace living the messages which we're always wanting to promote more than anything. But shall we begin with a short prayer? Would you like to lead us in a short prayer, asking the Holy Spirit to guide us? Because it's completely off the cuff, isn't it?
I'd love to. How about if we brief prayer followed by Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory be in Latin? Would that be all right?
Sure, if you want to lead it, that'd be great. I'm a bit sketchy with the Latin these days.
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We invoke the most precious blood of our Lord Jesus Christ on Mark's show, on Mark himself and his lovely wife, his family, and on all those who will come to hear and watch this show, and so as to render Satan blind, deaf, mute, and impotent in distorting the subjects which will be discussed here today. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimitimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, et Mater Nostrae, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Gloria Patri, et Filio, et Spiritui Sancto, sicut era in principio, et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Wonderful, Xavier. Thank you very much. Yeah, so touching base after a few weeks, what's happening in the world? Where's your radar going? Because for the little I'm picking up, again, focusing on Europe, focusing on a lot that's happening with Russia and Europe right now, but at the same time, the mass migration of Muslims. It just goes back to Marie Julie Jeheni, it goes back to Padre Pio, it goes back to Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, Blessed Elena Elio. Who am I not mentioning? The apparition sites as well, of course, such as Fatima and everything else. We've seen Pope Francis near death's door in this monumental historic period in life, this very important year of Jubilee, not just the 12-month Jubilee, but the 50-year cycle, prophetically, as we know. How have we to make sense of a lot that's happening and things like that? Where are you with it all?
Well, I was discussing this matter with Father Courtville a few days ago. It's one question. It's one thing to study prophecy, isn't it? To discuss it, to have shows about it. It's another to start living them. And I believe that that's it. We've entered into the threshold of prophecy. The chapter has been opened, has been begun. The first pages are being written as we speak. So, indeed, in regards to prophecies, with Marie-Julie Shahini, which, as you know, is my forte, although I've studied others. But that's the one I spoke most with Father Cotteville, rather Father Laurentin, years ago, and the one that is principally on. I wrote mostly about it. And in regards to that prophecy, particularly regarding France, England, Italy, Germany, and Spain, this is happening right now. It is with profound pain that I see your country, England, or the United Kingdom rather, being subjugated to the same thing France has been subjugated for the past 3 decades. But England is now feeling, from what I understand, the grunt of a mistake politics, a globalist politics, which tends to put on the altar of sacrifice English identity, English history, to give way to a complete foreign one, somewhat one that is irreconcilable with the history, the culture, even the laws of your kingdom. The same thing has happened in France for the past 40 years. And the point is, I suspect now that France and England are but a mere reflection of each other. And which means that now if today you dare raising your voice and bringing or pointing with your finger, what we call in France le grand remplacement, the great replacement of populations, you will be immediately called or thought as a fascist, a neo-Nazi, and all this sort of rubbish. Now, it is no longer fashionable to be patriotic. It's no longer fashionable to forget your past and the overwhelming sacrifices that our fathers and their fathers before them did for the ongoing continuation of a patrimony given from generation to generation. Now, certainly the advocates of the devil's advocates would say, well, yes, but we have to be opening our arms. We have to be generous to other countries. Yes, generosity and charity begins first and foremost at home. Begin to take care of your own population before receiving others. And if you invite people over to your home, you would expect them to comply with your rules, with your ways of doing things. You do not leave your door unlocked or your windows unlocked and greet people that come through the window or through the door uninvited. And if they do come, if you do invite people into your homes, it would seem to me that you wouldn't let them take off their shoes and begin to pray in direction of the Mecca in the middle of dinner. It is up to them to adapt to the ways of the house, of the hosting house. It is up to all the Muslims, to all the non-Christians, non-English, to come to your country and submit and adapt to the rules of your country, to the culture of England, which is by twice already millenary. It is up to foreigners to adapt to England. It is not up to England to adapt to foreigners, particularly when it concerns a culture, a civilization whose root is utterly intolerant of anything that is not Islamic or Muslim. The same problem do we have in France, my dear Mark. And indeed, when you said that I am the best friend of your channel, it goes without saying that this channel is my best friend as well. I enjoy you immensely. I think you're one of, and I always weighed my words carefully, you're one of my very best friends. For everything you've done, I mean it. And your channel is nothing short of exemplary. What you've done selflessly is nothing more but exemplary and admirable. But yes, in response to your question, prophecy has begun. We are watching it. This is just the beginning. But as you said, very rightfully, and I'll conclude with that. I don't want to monopolize the floor. But there is hope. And the hope resides in men like you, Mark, in men and women that watch these shows, even others that await, like very much across the channel. People that are in France, Frenchmen abroad as well, English abroad, like their French countrymen, are watching quietly, are waiting for the moment when their conscience will be called to join the man of providence, who will be there to restitute our nations, our church, the glory of yesteryears.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up for a quote, but it must be in another presentation. I did quote it on my last live uh, video a few weeks ago. It was one from Father Malachi Martin, and I think it was back in the late 90s, 1997 maybe, and he couldn't divulge everything of the third secret of Fatima, although he knew it. He made that promise, that oath. So what he could say back then was the final resolution rested between Kiev and Russia. And he himself would never have thought of that as being the way, but that is divine wisdom. That is the Lord's will of how salvation will come from the east. So, although we are seeing these things happening where they're you go back to the World Government Book of 1980s, I forget the author's name, bullet points in the introduction of how they want polygamy, gay marriage, they want the state to raise your children, they try to get rid of Christianity and bring in man's intellect as the new God. And this is where you see AI emerging with all the other things in the list happening just now. It's definitely something where it's orchestrated. I'm convinced of that. But the problem is, they're going to reap what they sow. And I've been really feeling that conviction, especially the past couple of weeks. Just the prime ministers, the presidents, the kings, the royals, they're going to reap what they sow. And whatever's going to happen with this chaos coming, with the culture declining as we know it, for Islamists and Islam kicking in, and all the things that are out of control just now. I mean, it's really at breaking point, and it's just filling and filling more and more each day with more illegal immigrants welcomed into the country. And but there's something that has to be hopeful in that when it's us, and hearing that message from Father Malachi Martin is salvation is to come from the east. I don't know how you could
Yeah,
plug that in with other things, but it's through this God is working.
yes. It's. I will tell you another thing which has intrigued me for many years. I wrote it in the book as well, but I almost didn't. Very much like the story of the French army, the prophecies of Marie-Julie being sent to the east as well. I did not understand that then. And I almost didn't write it out of fear of losing credibility, but I wrote everything, including a prophecy of Marie-Julie that stated that the king, who will be coming from the north, from abroad, French king, would also indeed be coming in France through the east. I did not understand that because that was not my idea where that French king would be coming from. No? So if from the east, it could be Belgium, through Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Switzerland, or Italy. But would he be residing in one of these countries or further east, or from another country making a tour through an eastern country? I did not understand that sort of. I really didn't. But that's what she wrote. So our job is really to report without emotions. You could say as a bit of journalists, the prophecies that are being brought forth. So you're quite right. It's another common denominator we find between that particular reference you brought forth and indeed the apparitions and the prophecies from Marie-Julie Shahini. Very curious. And remarkably enough, and I'll finish as well with this, I had a gentleman, whom is a remarkable one, from Hungary, who contacted me about 2 years ago, and who had a claim that indeed he is a direct descendant from the Austro-Hungarian, the Habsburg imperial family, and that therefore a royal family, I beg your pardon, and that as such Um, Indeed, he recognized himself in some of the prophecies of Marie-Julie Jahenny. I do not think so, because there are some prerequisites that we know of this future King of France, no? Which will be the great hope, not just for France. It will be a great hope for France, but for indeed he will become first and foremost King of France, with the possibility later thereafter, probably after the period of the chastisement to be closed, to become a future emperor of the of a renewed, reborn Holy Roman Empire. But before that happens, and this is just assumption and supposition on my part, we know a few things from Marie-Julie Jahenny, who is possibly, unquestionably, I would say, the visionary who has gotten the largest and most abundant amount of details about this person, whom you, myself, and I would dare say millions of other people around the world are waiting for. First and foremost, we know that we are not to seek him. Those are instructions from heaven. For indeed, if we are to find him, God forbids, he would assist his present enemies, who already today, Mark, and I know you know that because we had this conversation many times behind cameras, that his enemies are actively and very astutely making it appear like everything is normal status quo. No, they are actively searching for him everywhere.
Oh.
I'm talking about the Freemasons. I'm talking about some Republicans who do not want to see a pretender to their government. I'm talking even including some members of the Bourbon family. What do we know about this person, according to from Marie-Julie Jahenny? First of all, we know what he's not. Marie-Julie Jahenny, on one instance, echoed a message of the Blessed Virgin Mary, telling her that the future King of France will not be a Nandorf. You're familiar with the story of the Nandorf, yes? This German watchmaker from Germany in the 19th century, coming back to France and coming back with incredible memories, even having been recognized as the nanny, recognized by their nanny, by the nanny of the Prince of France, as the little Dauphin, the little Prince, Louis the 17th. He came up with some extraordinary stories, but the Blessed Virgin Mary was adamant. The future King of France is not a Nandorf. We know that he will be a direct descendant of Louis the 17th, who happened to be the 10-year-old little boy, son of Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette, who supposedly passed away in the jail cell of Le Temple in Paris. But the debate as to whether or not the child found, or the remains of the child found in this cell, was that of the Dauphin being the title of the French prince, is still a subject of utmost debate everywhere in France. It's been for now over 2 centuries. No? And what is remarkable to note is that the autopsy of that cadaver showed to be the autopsy of a 14-year-old teenager, certainly not that of a 10-year-old little boy. And they made some DNA test on the heart that supposedly was that of the little Dauphin. Those, like those that I support, are claiming no. That heart that was studied with the DNA rather, ADN is the French way we do it in reverse. So the DNA of that particular heart was that of his older brother Charles, who passed away just when the French Revolution began. So, and the Virgin Mary was clear in La Salette, as well as through Marie-Julie Jahenny, through Tilly, that the future King of France would be a direct descendant not only of King Saint Louis, but a direct descendant of Louis the 16th and of Marie Antoinette. So we know he's not going to be a Nandorf. According to the Blessed Virgin Mary, he will not be a Bonaparte either. Thank God. Nor will he be either a Bourbon from the House of Orleans. For it seems that in the messages received by Marie-Julie Jahenny from heaven, the House of Orleans, the Bourbon, the royal family branch of the House of Orleans, is an evil branch. The same branch where, as we mentioned here before, Philippe Égalité, the cousin of the king's vote, was the one that decided on his being guillotined, and Her Highness Marie Antoinette. So that is who he will not be. We know as well that this man, the future king of France, the great monarch, will be born in France. And we know that although he will be born in France, he will not be residing in France. France will not own him, according to the verbiage used by Marie-Julie Janis, or rather by the Blessed Virgin Mary through Marie-Julie Janis. So he is abroad. He's living humbly, without trying to attract attention, and watching, listening, waiting. This man probably watches the show. Monarch. But we know that, as I mentioned a few moments ago, he will be coming from a country of the north through means of ways of the east. So that's what we were told from Marie-Julie Janis. And his name, according to revelation given by the Blessed Virgin Mary and Saint Michael the Archangel to Marie-Julie Janis, will be Henry V of the Cross.
Yeah, right. So I wasn't aware of linking that with Father Malachi saying about coming from the east. Then that actually makes sense to the French monarch. Right, right. We could probably dive deeper with me thinking where that lineage goes all the way back. Like, I know others are speaking about the Davidic dynasty and things like that, and I have to put my hand up and say I'm more ignorant I'm less informed of the things regarding the French monarch because it's not something I focused on when I first saw all the apparitions linking together. But it seems to be I'm finding now more and more I need to know more because it's very important. There was a book I read many years ago and I always remembered one line from it, and it was out of all the prophecies given, whether it was Russia, whether it was the church, the popes, whatever, there were more prophecies concerning the French monarch than any other topic, apparently. And that always stood with me. I'm like, well, I've never came across any. This was maybe 15, 20 years ago now. But why France then? Why the French king? Why France? I mean, that could probably open up a lot there, but why is God choosing it to be France, not Russia, who's apparently to come and glorify God the most, according to Our Lady? Why is it to do with France and the French monarch?
Of course, I'm a Frenchman, so it would appear that I would be quite biased. But I've tried to answer the question myself as coldly and objectively as I could. I think that France, since the birth of its history, since the birth of the nation through the baptism of France's first king, Clovis, had a mission of sorts, which later had it been known as the Church's eldest daughter. This has nothing to do with the fact that I am a Frenchman. This is as objectively and cold and neutral as I'm able to constate now. To that effect, France had a history which was dedicated to the Catholic Church and to its protection since the 7th century, and since even before, to a certain extent. But with the crowning of the first French king, Clovis, we can see a certain destiny that led Christianity to be protected and through a spearhead of sort, which France represented all the way from the 7th century to the French Revolution, I regret to say, with this demise of their Highnesses Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. When Clovis was about to be crowned, he was to be crowned in the cathedral of Reims in France, which to this day still stands as glorious as ever. Now, this was the cathedral where King Charles VII, and known as the well-served by Joan of Arc, was crowned thanks to Joan of Arc as well. So this cathedral holds immense history and affection in the hearts of true Frenchmen. And therefore, on the crowning, and perhaps this would answer that question, or so I thought, this is really the first stone of an edifice that instituted France's mission for the centuries to come, and I think that answers your question. When the first king, Clovis, was about to be crowned, thousands, tens of thousands of Franks, those were the name of the Frenchmen of the time, came from the four corners of Gaul to witness the crowning of their first king, the king that was going to unite all the Gauls into a first nation. Well, the Bishop of Reims, whose name was Remy, was overwhelmed by seeing such large crowds entering, pushing, amassing before the altar of the cathedral, and not allowing the good monks who were preparing with all sorts of satin pillows to bring the scepter, the sword, and the holy oils to anoint the first king of Gaul, first king of France. And so poor Cardinal Bishop Remy began to make a fervent prayer at the altar, asking God for a miracle, for what it appeared to be otherwise a major fiasco. All of a sudden, in front of this massive disorder, a dove, whiter than snow, began to fly inside the cathedral with something undistinguishable in its beak. When this white dove landed on the palm of Bishop Remy, the creature dropped ever so gently this crystal flask containing some sort of oils, which um, let go of a superb, sublime aroma. Immediately, that white dove started to fly away, only to disappear before the eyes of the good bishop. It's called the secret. Called the story of La Sainte Ampoule, of the Holy Flask. The ceremony was able to perform. Immediately, people started to move because they all witnessed this miracle. The monks arrived, and the oil that was inside that crystal flask was used to anoint the forehead of the first French king's forehead, his lips, his hands, his shoulder, and the nape of his neck. Now, the first French king was finally baptized and crowned king of the Franks, the first French king. What's remarkable is that little flask of Saint Remy was kept in the Basilica first of Reims. In the years to come, in the Basilica of Saint Denis, northeast of Paris. And every single king of France, and it was tradition to do so, was anointed before being crowned and made a knight, as the centuries went on, with this particular oil. And the level of this flask never dropped. In all these centuries, in almost 1,000 years of employment, never ever was it dropping. A miracle of sorts. What's more, every French king, when used to be walking out either of the Cathedral of Reims or of Notre Dame, it was again traditional, used to walk out on an avenue that was covered with sick French subject begging for a miracle. And the formula of the French king was always Dieu te touche, que Dieu te guérisse. God, the king touches you, may God heal you. And the quantities of miraculous healings are unmentionable ever since the dawn of French monarchy to its sorrowful end. France, what's more, for the next centuries, always came to the rescue of the Pope, of the Papal States, until finally the next, when the revolution took over, when Napoleon III finally did not come to the assistance of the Papal States, and actually Napoleon III, before he became emperor, was the first French president of the first French Republic, France, through the infiltration of the Freemasonic influence during the revolution, immediately ceased to hold to heart the mission that was bestowed upon it through the crowning of the first French king, Clovis. This is a very Franco-French story, but what leads, I think, in response to your question, France to be chosen is because prophecies that were given to Marie-Julie Genis were very clear. Marie-Julie Genis was told that France, of all the nations, would be, of all the Occidental powers, the first one to collapse on its knees, to collapse to misery, shortly thereafter followed by her allies. But also salvation and hope would come from France through the arrival of this monarch, and it would be the first country to get back on its feet, to deliver its allies, and to restitute upon the throne of Peter an angelic pope. Voilà. That's
Yeah.
the best answer that with the information we have that I'm able to give you today.
Oh, it's great because I can see the typology with the dove and that miracle with the oil. Because it's likely to be olive oil, isn't it? Because you usually find most ordinations and things are done with olive oil. Confirmations, it's olive oil. It's blessed olive oil. Um, it could be any, but I could easily believe that could be the one. It's not important as such, but it makes me think back to the dove with the olive branch at the time of Noah and the ark. You know, that reset of the world again. And the typology, the biblical theology would look at that as a way of a re-baptism with the waters again, a cleansing again. And then the typology coming through that family lineage as well, all the way through Joseph into, because there's a lot of talk about the Davidic dynasty finds its way to France, and well, the French monarch could find its way right back to the Davidic dynasty. And Dr. Brant Preetry, who's a great Bible scholar, has taught a great lesson on the Jewish roots of St. Joseph. That seems to be his thing, the Jewish roots of the Eucharist, the Jewish roots of this. But he did a great one in St. Joseph, and he makes it clear through the Holy Bible that Joseph is the true king of Israel. He should be the one on the throne. He is the hidden king. And in the simplest of terms of my radar, where it would make me think, well, this is what I have to research, the thought came to me, the typology again, the hidden king of the same bloodline. What goes around, history repeating itself, what's going around comes around. And it's like the hidden king Saint Joseph, the hidden king Henry of the Cross, Henry V of the Cross. It's like the same bloodline, it's the
Hmm.
same typology. It's coming around again. And I just think that's enough to give me a great inclination of wanting to know more to fill that knowledge gap in. But the fact he's coming from the east and no one knows him, he's not like hiding in plain sight like a great world leader or diplomat. That's not the case. You think he's more silently hiding?
It's somebody, from what I gather, that is totally unsuspectable to be the king of France. Somebody who is practicing Catholic, somebody who is admirable in his ways of life, but not somebody who jumps to one's attention through financial success, for instance, or who is renowned publicly one way or the other. He is right now waiting amongst the mass, amongst the population. Very ordinary looking, somebody that no one would suspect to be the subject of such an extraordinary destiny. But he will be called when the time comes, through, according to Marie-Julie Geny, through the voice of a privileged soul who will be ordered and mandated to find him and to echo to him his mission. It would be then that this extraordinary person would come. We know from Father Michel Rodrigue that the French king will come shortly after the public auto presentation of the Antichrist. And part of the mission of the king will also to fight the forces of the Antichrist, to fight the Antichrist. That much we know from Father Michel. Father Michel and Luz de Maria, whom you as well on that particular day interviewed with me, have seen him, know him. So, but they do not want to discuss more. Even to me, I tried to speak with Luz. I asked her, and then I realized I was being indiscreet, and I'm not supposed to know. We are not supposed to know. So, but she does. So does Father Michel, and I've learned to stop being curious and to wait when the moment comes. And the time will come when the French king will come forth. He will be presented publicly, and there will be people who will help him to recruit, to bring the faithful to assist him, and to rise in one voice to the call of the king to restitute and to save not only France but the world, beginning with Europe and with the Church. who at the time when he will be called uh, will have become practically non-existent, or at least not visible anymore, with an empty seat of Saint Peter. That's not me saying this. It's merely an echo of the prophecies brought forth by through Marie-Julie Jahenny. And this king will bring forth, as you well know, Mark, an angelic pope before the last seal of the chastisement period befalls us all, and before the great renaissance and rebirth of a new world of peace and in the shadow of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to that for sure.
Oh, so am I. So do I.
Yeah, so Xavier, with all that being said, then what's the spark that's to ignite France? Marie-Julie Jahenny says France would be the spark, and then I think we know where that's coming because we hear the word revolution mentioned several times from several sources, and you can see that through Islam coming in and the chaos that's going to come with the clash of cultures and everything. But at the same time, Russia's right on the doorstep of Europe. Uh, in fact, a few days ago, 2 days ago, there's videos. I think it was Candace Owens brought up a highlighted video there of herself where she's saying the World Economic Forum are planning for a great cyber attack that'll be like a pandemic of the internet. And why we should listen to this is because it was still the World Economic Forum that predicted a pandemic a year before it happened in 2019. So maybe we should listen to this one as well and see if it happens within the year. Are we looking at financial crashes? Are we looking at war and revolutions all at the one time? And is that then when the King of France is to come, do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think that will be the time. There will be indeed a crash that has been announced by countless reputable visionaries, including Marie-Julie Jahenny, and also more contemporary ones, such as Luz de Maria, Father Oliveira, Father Michel Rodrigue, and others around the world. I suspect that some of the secrets of Medjugorje and of Garabandal deal with those particular subjects, and it will be a confirmation more than some revelations of events that have already been pre-announced. Other part of those secrets, both from Medjugorje and Garabandal, will involve things that will be more locally, would be more local. But indeed, I do believe that this crash, a financial crash, is rather close, and but the king will not be coming at then. The king will be coming shortly after the warning, which we know will take place in the midst of a major conflict at the apotheose or the zenith of this military or geopolitical crisis in the world. Right now, two principal spots come to mind naturally. Of course, Ukraine and the Middle East. Let's not forget the tremendous tensions that are taking place right now over there. There is no ceasefire there. Lebanon, Beirut, a couple of days ago, was being pounded. Israel is on its southern zones, while Daesh is already at the doors of Beirut. It's already entered Lebanon for the past few months on its eastern borders. It's not the poor, badly equipped and badly trained Lebanese army that will be able to stop any of this. No? So the situation is being what it is, and the Americans are bombing the Houthis, and many people do not know that. The Houthis right now in Yemen constitute a major military force comprising of about 800,000 regulars and an arsenal of ballistic weapons that are able to reach Israel. As of late, the Americans are doing their best to bomb them, to try to stop the ongoing and non-stop continuous attacks of the Houthis in the Red Sea, but it's not doing much to stop this madness, and the Houthis are being totally supported, armed, and financed by Iran. So, the situation being what it is, the king is due, according to prophecy, to make an appearance after the warning, and Marie-Julie Jahenny, in very brief passages of her prophecies, mentioned the warning, which will be an illumination of sort of conscience for people to be able to see their own selves in a more lucid way. No? And shortly thereafter, then after the warning, the Antichrist will make an appearance, that is after 42 days thereafter, which will be left for humanity to convert and return to God. And then it will be the arrival of the Antichrist, and shortly thereafter, the arrival of two individuals which have been chosen by heaven to appear and combat the Antichrist. One of them will be the King of France, and it will be after that a massive war on the European continent will have spread through a blitzkrieg of sorts. We've discussed this many times in your channel before. We know how that will take place, and once part of France, with a line that would be from Le Havre to Bordeaux, no, which will, or was it? Yeah, no, it was from Le Havre to Bordeaux. Everything to the east will be controlled or destroyed by the Russians and by an alliance of the Russians or Eastern Europeans and the Muslim from a consortium of nations that will have joined up in the invasion of part of Europe. And it will be then, when it will seem to be all lost, that this privileged soul will leave France to seek the King of France, for him to come to France. And yes, although the eastern part of France will be under occupation and or destroyed, Marie-Julie Janis was unequivocal. This man will come from a northern country, but through the east, and will join the French army, who will recognize as the man of providence, and then he will begin to deliver France in remarkable ways, with an army quite and utterly inferior in matter of numbers and armament to its opponent, managing to throw it out of the borders of France and to throw the Muslims out to sea. France will be ravaged during this conflict, and then a new campaign will take place in Italy for the deliverance of Italy. Now, it appears that the Italians will resist, or rather the Russians and Muslims in Italy will resist a great deal more fiercely than they did in France. For there will be a war, according to Marie-Julie Janis, that will last there for about 3 years and a half. And incredibly enough, Mark, I think we've discussed this in your channel a long time ago. Marie-Julie Janis was told, do you remember, by St. Michael the Archangel of a name? We discussed this in your channel. Do you remember?
Della Torre.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Arcael de la Torre. And poor Marie-Julie Janis, with her French, had difficulty trying to repeat that name. Saint Michael had to repeat it 3 times for the poor Briton French woman to finally gather the name, Arcael de la Torre. Now that sounds very Latin, does it not? Italian or Spanish, perhaps? What do you think?
Yeah. So I was thinking Della of the Archael is almost like, so what's that, like Archangel, almost Archael or something.
It does sound like that, but
Of the Tory, I'm thinking Toro, like the bull, the horns, something. I've never even actually tried to put it into a translator or anything.
I wondered. We know, according to Marie-Julie Janis, that this man will be coming from a Germano Pakistani family. They used to be Catholic and converted to Islam. But still, it sounds very Latin, Italian, or Spanish, very Mediterranean. And that man with his brother will cross through Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and will come to Italy upon being invited by his neo-communist, socio-communist friends, and will take power in Italy for about a year. Now, I thought, again, I could be wrong, but perhaps the anagram of the letters Arcael de la Torre, if you mix them differently, would come up with another name. I wonder. No? Perhaps not. I don't know. Or maybe that would be the closest Italian or Hispano-Italian translation of an original Pakistani Germanic name. Your guess is as good as mine, mon ami.
Yeah, but I think we're seeing a lot. I mean, we have been seeing things unfold, and we're in the thick of it. There's no doubt about that. With so many details, so much context, finesse, detail given by heaven for all this that we're seeing coming in every direction, and we're just waiting for the snap. We're just waiting for it, aren't we? And it's rolling out fast. I find the trajectory of certain things such as this immigration crisis of biblical proportions here in Europe, is going to have to go quick with this alone. But I just find it again timely that we're at the end of the four popes of Garabandal. We're at the end of the list of popes of Malachi, St. Malachi. We have had the prophesied two popes, and one man it seems to fit round all this stuff as we move on is Pope Francis. And yet he was at death's door just for the past month. And however long we're getting before he does pass, is God only knows. But there was even talk that they were almost just letting him go, and they pushed on a little bit to save him. Do you find anything fitting us to the time of why he would die? And are we just going to get another pope straight after? Or do you think, for all the calamities that are going on around this papacy and the confusion and everything else, without bad mouthing him or that, but do you think in a way heaven's kind of extending its mercy by still having the man with the keys? There's something significant, do you think, as the figurehead of the Pope, whether it's Francis or whoever, but with him being at this pivotal time of all these combined papal prophecies, what happens when he goes? Are we going straight into the angelic Pope? Is it Petrus Romanus? Because everything else is on the stage waiting for this one mystery part to play out. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that Pope Francis, and just to make a point, I've never, ever called him Bergoglio. No, never. I've always recognized him, although I never agreed with his politics, but I've always recognized him as the legitimate pontiff in the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church. I've never, ever called him Bergoglio. So I think that as far as Pope Francis is concerned, I was very surprised of the fact that after he left the hospital, he was placed into convalescence for 2 months. I don't know. You'll remember when he came out and he blessed the people. He did it in a very awkward manner. He's not well. He's not comfortable, and yet they're putting him in a place for convalescence where he's not able to do much. Now, the reins of the Catholic Church right now are truly, mostly, principally, in the hands of the Vatican's number 2, the Vatican Secretary of State, His Eminence Cardinal Parolin. Pietro Parolin. And the last Pope, we'll remember, is Peter the Roman. I think that today, whether we like it or not, the Vatican, until the Pope Francis returns, if he does, is Pietro Parolin. He's the one today managing the situation. Already a battalion of new bishops have been appointed and are still being appointed across the world. Pope Francis, I suspect, although he started also with ideas that are typically of his country's culture, especially after what they've gone through with far-right putsch, the government they had, the huge socialist influence that Argentina has gone through for the past half century, had some very revolutionary ideas for the Catholic Church. But still he was a Pope. He is the Pope. He's never been anything else since his election. But I have a suspicion that right now he's trying to put the foot on the brakes. He was interviewed, you will remember, some months ago, about a year ago, before the beginning of the Synod of Synodality. He was interviewed, I think, by an American channel. I don't remember if it was ABC or 2020. I don't remember who was. I think it was 2020 on ABC, if memory serves. He was asked by the American interviewer, Your Holiness, will you one day be in favor of women in the religious as priests, in the sacerdotal rule of life? In the sacerdotal, to be a priest, in other words. And he answered, after a brief pause, he said, no. And then he explained himself. I think that possibly, I suspect anyway, Mark. This is just from a sheer observation of what I see on EWTN, on the news, on the Vatican, international news in France, Catholic TV, and so on and so forth, that the Pope was willing to do a lot of compromise to maintain peace and stability inside an atmosphere in the Vatican which was quite unstable and possibly forced His Holiness Pope Benedict XVI to resign. And I think that one compromise after one compromise, he reached at the end an impasse where he said, possibly no more. I have a feeling that's the impression that I have, observing things from afar. And I don't think that answer was satisfactory to his interlocutor or interlocutors.
Mm.
We know, of course, as well of this schism that has been taking place now for quite a few years in Germany, with the Episcopal College of Germany trying to do a parallel magisterium to that of the Catholic Church while still calling itself the Catholic Church. If Pope Francis wanted to do away with that rubbish, he would have given a distribution of excommunication to the right and to the left through those rebellious German bishops and cardinals. He hasn't. So something is going on, I think, behind the scenes which we are not aware of. But right now, what do we know for certain as an absolute truth? Reporting neutrally without emotions or parti pris or preconceived position taking. No, the absolute truth today is that Cardinal Pietro Parolin is today in charge of the Vatican in the absence of affairs of Pope Francis. That already he is leading it accordingly, and that very likely, I dare say, most likely than not, if there is a next conclave after the passing away of Pope Francis, he is most likely than not to be the next elected pontiff in Rome. That is my assumption. I could be totally wrong, but it's a point of view which I think is well supported. What are your opinions? I'm very interested. Please.
Yeah, well, I think that's one, as you've explained well with the name. The other one, I think, is Italian, but he's not from Rome. So it's like, are we meaning someone that's going to be in the diocese of Rome? Does his name have to be Peter, who is from Rome, or is it just the figurehead of the Pope, Peter, the first Pope, and the Roman? Again, if it's not location, could it have another meaning? And I was thinking this a few months ago. We're already seeing Pachamama, we're already seeing different things, like you say, a lot of confusion, a lot of politics rather than divine things seems to be taking over the government ruling of the Vatican, basically. But the Romans were pagans. So what happens if we end up with a pagan pope? By any name, what maybe that is another option, because it was the Pachamama that made me think that it's paganistic, and Europe is returning to paganism unless you've got Muslims coming in. So it's either Muslims or an increase of paganism. So it kind of makes me wonder: paganism, Rome, the Roman. Are we talking maybe again? It's all part of all religions are equal, and there's going to be a pope that's going to do a lot of this type of stuff. That was one thing that came to mind recently. But is there something of where if he dies and something interrupts the conclave, and then we don't have a pope, there's a great confusion, and then they'll elect one of their own from the diocese? There's another scenario type of thing, I don't know. But I've heard a few like that, and that the recent one I thought about was the idea of Roman just meaning the pagan, as the symbolism to the name, rather than it having to be someone called Peter from Rome, you know. And is it the next one? Is it the one after? Is there gaps in between? But Petrus Romanus, as we know, gets more of a description rather than a little snippet of a saying like Gloria Dei Olivia. Petrus Romanus is basically the one who's to lead the flock through a great tribulation type thing. So is that the next one? And part of me is like, well, is he to be the angelic pope? Or is that much later? So it makes me wonder, is Petrus Romanus, who's guiding the flock in the right way through hard times, a good shepherd, is he the angelic pope? Which means it has to be at the time of the King of France as well. So time will tell, but I don't think we have to wait long. Honestly, beyond 2033 at a generous time, because the more I'm looking into things like 2031, 2032, but let's say 2033 we get those exact 2,000 years. If not a single thing has happened by then, it's anyone's guess. And I never. Some people write comments saying, "Oh, you're trying to make predictions." I've never once tried to make a prediction. Why would I waste my time trying to? All this stuff isn't about trying to solve a puzzle. I've said it repeatedly. It's about seeing the context. It's about understanding, because some people out there are just refusing point blank to entertain this, to listen to it, because it might be a little upset and a little scary. Why are they feeling that way? It's because they can actually rationalise what they're hearing and how many things are kicking together. You know, from the Queen passing, the new sovereign of England witnessing all this stuff, just like Marie Julie Jahenny said, coincidentally at the timing of this Pope, coming from at least three sources of why this is the end of the era with this Pope. And he's at death's door in this Jubilee year, the beginning of 50-year Jubilee cycle. Yeah, you can't make it up. So,
I'll tell you one thing
yeah.
regarding comments and commentaries. I love to listen to and to read about from people who come up with different ideas and say, "No, I don't agree with you," and who say so elegantly, politely. It makes I enjoy that very much because these people are of good faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Those
I
that
think it's
are
like charitably, yes, that's good.
yes, those that begin to attack with morbid and sordid hatred. Um, I ignore them. I'll tell you one thing. As of recently, these past few days, I've received threats against my person and my family because of some comments, aggressive comments that we received. So I decided not to read anymore.
Right.
Those particular comments, no, I don't read them anymore. It's just pollution, and it is a contradiction with our faith. Anyone that's Catholic bathes in love, in charity, in a spirit of brotherhood. Even if they think that you're mistaken or you made errors, which is possible. Everyone is human. You do not vomit hatred or condemnation. That is not what we as Catholics are called to do, but to pray for your fellow man. So, a piece of advice to you. Well, as for me, I'm taking the legal predisposition for those threats to my that have been made against my person
Yeah.
and against my family, which for me is very difficult to accept. I've
Oh, yeah,
done
definitely.
yes, but you know what? I consider that a badge of honor. No, so as far as bad comments are concerned, one has got to learn to develop a crocodile skin and ignore them. It's a form of ignoring is a good protection for yourself. I love to read contradiction from people who know how to behave and to act as proper Christians that are not Pharisees. No, I do love, and sometimes they can come up and bring arguments that are very correct and makes you think perhaps you were wrong. It forces you to question yourself. But if it's properly done, why not listen to it and read and even issue a proper discussion as Catholics, as brothers before Christ? If we pretend to love Christ and the Blessed Virgin Mary, ask yourself this question: would the Virgin Mary advise you to attack, condemn, um, threat, hate? No, it's all the opposite. All these emotions of hatred, condemnations, insult are only inspired by Satan, not by God. So, as I said, my advice to you, laddie, is to ignore all this soup of mediocrity and to focus on what is worth reading and listening. And voila, à la grâce de Dieu, at the feet of the cross.
Unfortunately, it hasn't been too bad yet. Anything like that. Most people are good, and that again, I take few. I've got more things to do in life than try to reply to every bad person's comment. I try and get round to some, and if I don't get to them all, at least love, heart, like type of thing, you know. But I've noticed now it's starting to grow and grow, so there's so much that you would spend the whole day trying to respond to them all, only then to get another reply. And it's that's why we try and do the videos to answer things as well, don't we? We can reach everyone on a video when we see those coming in. But just to finish, I know we're rounding up the hour now from the recording. It's just like, for me, with all this stuff we're seeing, it's like to finish on that point where, right, all the stuff heaven's telling us about are coming because we humanity are allowing it. And this is how the devil's getting his chance, and it's in our face. The roaring lion's in our face, but the gentle whisper in the cave where God is, the Holy Spirit's very much at work. And someone told me the other day that there's been an increase of 60% sales in the Bible in the country. More people are registering coming back to Mass as well in England. They were bursting out the seams at Christmas and they're expecting it again at Easter. There's definitely a reality check when you turn off the screens, the news channels, and everything else, and you actually go into the parishes and you speak to normal human beings. There's something flowing in the silent whisper how God is working in the hearts. And at the same time, I feel the prophecy of St. Patrick after being in Ireland. And there's a great French connection with Ireland and La Salette and the French monarch with Our Lady's apparition in Knock. And I want to get you on to meet my friend Barry, because the both of you together are going to reveal a lot of great stuff and connections. I really feel inspired about that. And yeah, God's about to transform the world, and I do believe that fire has been lit and it's spreading. The Eucharistic processions, the adorations, the revivals, things are happening. People are responding to the prayer and the fasting, and I think more and more as time's going on right now, people are doing it more and more. The connections, how we're all getting connected on these platforms, is as if, right, let's bring it all together, folks, and then God's going to do the final chapter. That's what I really think's in the works right now. What about you?
I totally agree. We are the threshold of a tremendous period of time, a point of reference, I think, in future history books. And I, for one, laddie, I do believe of this connection as well between Ireland and France. Also, remarkably enough, despite of my much joking in the past now of England, I'm very Anglophile, always have been. I do not forget the history of the past. History is one of my passions, no? So England is a great nation. We've been at odds with them for many centuries, but I still remember how they came to the rescue of royalist families during the French Revolution and World War II, of course, when they welcomed the last hope of France through General de Gaulle. So those are things that I've been taught since a child, never to forget. So I believe that there is hope for the United Kingdom, in the sense that what you're going through is what France is going through. It's necessary. It's something that needs to burst out eventually. Still, the great majority of the population living and residing in the United Kingdom is still Anglo-Saxon. And the time will come when this abscess will burst. And it will be necessary in order for a cleansing to take place once more. I'm not talking about racial cleansing, of course not. Remember this, you're talking with a nephew of a free French officer who fought the Nazis and who lost his life in the process of it. So I'm totally anti-Nazi, anti-fascist. But I am a patriot. France first. In the case of England, England first. No, I would finish simply by saying, for anyone which would be of the left spectrum of the political scale of things, to accept the replacement of the culture, the history, the patrimony that your fathers, your ancestors have left for you to enjoy, to abandon that to foreigners who spit on those memories, on those sacrifices, who come with only one ambition: to replace what they find in England in Wales, in Scotland, and even in Ireland, so as to replace it with a Sharia, would be nothing more of a traitor of the patrimony of the past, traitor to their families, to their own ancestors who gave everything so that they would enjoy the fruit of sacrifice. It's a question not of lack of charity, it's a question of charity, of for your own. Charity is better served first at home, then you take care of the others. You will never see in Saudi Arabia or in Iran or in Oman or Yemen or Algeria cathedrals, Anglican cathedrals or Catholic cathedrals being built in the Mecca. Look what happens in Syria to Catholics or Christians. They crucify them. Where are all the manifestation and protest of the English Muslims or the French Muslims in London or in Paris protesting against this barbaric practice of crucifying the Christians in Syria? Saudi Arabia has done that as well to the homosexuals, to the non-Muslims. Who is rising in the streets of London or Paris to say enough? I don't see any Muslims saying no.
Well, it's not reaching us because the media won't put it on the news. Of course, it's not part of the narrative. But we are
No.
aware of it in other places. And this is the thing. We keep looking at the Western society, and that's what the Pope reminds us. The Catholic Church isn't in the West. It's not. It doesn't belong to the West or to Europe. I mean, you go to countries around the world where the Catholic Church is thriving. Vocations are thriving in other South America. If you go Russia, even the springtime of the Orthodox apparently is rising greatly, continuously. Um, so it is all over the world in countries I probably can't even name. But his recent papal trips he's said things like that, and yeah, well, let the Holy Spirit guide it as he wills, because at the same time he's very much at work, and we have to listen carefully to know what God's saying rather than clearly seeing the opposition. That's what I would say.
I agree. Well, there is no war without battles. The important thing is what will help the spectators, the witnesses, to determine who is on the side of God and who is on the side of Satan. Are those who are attacked the way they respond? With calmness, with love, with faithfulness to the Catholic Church, with a preach, with a message, an invitation always to go to confession, to adoration, and most of all, to Holy Communion in a state of grace. That is the language of the Catholic Church, of a servant of God. The servants of the enemy of God will be hatred, condemnation, insult, attack, etc., etc. Do you really think that comes from God?
Exactly. And that's what I would say to everyone watching. Keep the faith, keep the hope. We are pilgrims of hope after all. Hint, hint. And pray, pray, pray. As Padre Pio says, this is your best weapon of all. The Holy Rosary and the sacraments. And there's no greater peace for me, Xavier, than when I go to Holy Mass and have some adoration, getting a good cleansing at the confessional, living the messages. And I'm going to cover up on another video about the March 18th message, because to me it was fitting what she said between what's happening in Ireland as well, about the illumination and the darkness and things with that prophecy. I think there's a
Right.
little hint there. I'm covering more and more. But I want to thank you. I know we've just went over an hour now. I want to thank you as always for taking your time to come on. I know you're busier than ever with your own channel, with many other channels. And if those who have not, for some reason, heard of this great book to get, Xavier, I've got it on my desk at all times with my little markers, always looking at it
That's
for reference points of view. And obviously your new channel as well that many people on here will know about. Do you want to tell them what it is?
You're very kind, Mark. You really are You're an exceptional laddie. Thank you, mon ami. Yes, we have this channel that's called Au Crux Ave Media. Um, we also doing. By the way, there were questions about the reason why we call it Au Crux Ave. It's not because of any source of Latin confusion. Au Crux Ave Media, for those who did not know, may those who have ears listen, was called was called because it was a stigmata that appeared on the chest of stigmatist and visionary Marie-Julie Janis, O crux ave spes unica, which means, "Oh, hell to the cross to the cross, our only hope." No? That's how we named and why we named our channel accordingly. And if you give me your permission, I'd
Mhm.
like to announce a project we just finished, a documentary. May I?
Yes, by all means.
Remarkably enough, we finished a documentary on the warning. We are going to play a trailer in the course of this coming week. I believe we're going to do it, subject still to confirmation, on Wednesday of this coming week. So it's been directed by two American producers who are doing this out of sheer conviction. We have quite a few surprises in there. We are putting the original documentary is filled with special effects. The principal purpose of this documentary is to bring to the attention of the faithful what to expect with the coming of the warning. In other words, people will know what the warning will look like based on the testimonies of visionaries such as Reverend Father Oliveira, who's an exorcist in Brazil, and celebrated visionary. His spokesman has been sent to portray his testimony, Luz de Maria, who has an episcopal imprimatur, Father Michel Rodrigue, Conchita Gonzalez, will have an excerpt of a description of what is to happen. There will be actors who will also echo the description by Marie-Julie Jahini, Saint Sister Faustina, and others. There are quite a few surprises during the entire documentary. You'll be surprised. You'll be really quite surprised. But the special effects will have for objective to show you what to expect, and most of all, and that is one of the cornerstone of this documentary, how to prepare. How to prepare principally by living one's life on the basis of our Lord's teachings in the four Gospels, in the dogma of the faith, catechism, the sacraments of the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church, particularly confession and the Holy Mass. Receive Holy Communion in a state of grace. And of course, the self-consecration to the Sacred Heart, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and to be in the state of grace. All this will be explained in this documentary. That was the purpose of it all. And again, I'll send you an information to confirm. It will be on Wednesday on Ocrux Ave Media, the trailer. And Mark, thank you for your ever so kind invitation. You truly are mon ami, my friend, and indeed, I am indeed one of the best friends of your channels, and I thank you, and I thank all your viewers, whom I enjoy ever so much.
No, wonderful, Xavier. Thanks for that. I'm really excited, looking forward to it. It's good to know it's coming so soon. And for everyone else, stay tuned to both channels. And you know what to do with the thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, cast the nets. We need to get to as many souls as we possibly can. Who needs to hear the messages? Hit that subscribe and share button and get it out there. And until next time, as always, take care and may God bless you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.